Welcome to CWC Art and Soul with Catherine. I am Catherine Whalen-Costin, also known as Clarity Whisperer. I am the host and producer of the shows, a series of deep exploration into higher visions, better ways to live on planet Earth, new insights that may help us move beyond the old ways and into new, more harmonious systems that empower all, not just some. What if it isn't a choice between black or white? What if we can choose from a color palette far beyond what has been explored before? What if? So many possibilities. If this kind of exploration intrigues you, please grab yourself a chair, put your feet up, as long as you aren't operating machinery, of course, and join us to mine for gems of wisdom. No medical advice is offered on any podcast on this channel. If you require medical assistance, please contact your healthcare practitioner. You can find previous podcasts on the website cwcartandsoul.com or on Apple Podcasts or on the YouTube channel. The guest list and future shows are also listed on the website. Now let's get exploring and have some fun. Thank you for joining me. It's Catherine from CWC Art and Soul with Catherine, and we have another delightful chat today. Today, my guest is Carole Serene. She channels a high spiritual energy called Pax, P-A-X, and that stands for peace, which I love. We need that kind of energy on the planet more than ever. Messages she shares are very serious for these times and very important. She has written several books, and she's mentioned you can go to Amazon to get her books. And she talks about a couple of them in this video. She also shared with us how she came to know her spiritual gifts and what it's all about. And I think it's really interesting to hear that so that we really start to understand what enlightenment looks like, what expanding our horizon, connecting spirit to the human experience in harmony with Mother Earth. These are exciting times to be on the planet. So let's get into this chat with Carole Serene. I agree. It's like spirit is, and especially right now, I feel like the feminine has had enough. Like we've got these talents, we've got these gifts. We came here to do stuff. Get cracking. It's like
the underlying message, aside from love, from Pax, over these many years, and it is intensifying, is personal power. Mm-hmm. The importance to take your power, to recognize that you have it, and then to find a way to own it and allow it. And I know, because I always read between the lines with Pax, there is something even greater coming in our writing about Spirit's intention for us in terms of the greater good of planet Mother Earth.
So we're back with another episode of CWC Art and Soul. And my guest today is Carole Serene. Welcome, Carole.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
This is going to be an exciting conversation. I have not interviewed you before, so I always love that when I'm meeting somebody new that I've been following through Facebook for a number of years, and then I get to meet you in the virtual flesh and share you with my audience, and because you're doing amazing work. And you are an author of many books. You are a medium, a channeler. You are also an animal communicator. And I want to know what everybody wants to know, inquiring minds want to know in a way. How did this start? Were you open to your spiritual gifts as a child? Did you come in with parents that were supportive of spiritual gifts, or how? Give us how did this happen?
Well, to answer your questions, no, no, and no.
Hey, so
No understanding of it at all. Very loving parents. I'm an only child, came from Victoria, British Columbia, and entered this life as an old soul. This I certainly know now. As an only child with no one around to play with, I had all kinds of activities of my own creation. I look back on them now and I recognize that I was, as a small child, living out aspects of my own prior lifetimes.
makes
I,
sense.
yeah. And for example, I would go into the forest and I would practice the art of stealth, just like my Aboriginal self when I was a First Nations person, creeping through the forest, not breaking a twig or making a sound. I used to perfect that. Why? Kids don't do that, but I did. Another example is I'd be out in front of our house, and I would have brought some sticks from the forest, and I would lay them down on the ground in a cross, and I would do a mighty fine sword dance as I did in my Scottish lifetimes. And I would excel at these things. Of course, my parents had no idea what I was doing. I was just playing outside like kids were supposed to do. But as life progressed through what I call my long and winding road, I was always protected, and spirit was with me in ways I had no idea of. I grew up in a very religious family, and there would never have been talk about past lifetimes. For example, you die, you're dead. That's about, you go to heaven, you go there, whatever. Reincarnation, well, that was against the teachings, so that would never have been spoken of. As I grew up, I always felt I was in a hurry. And this is a sign for your listeners that I think this is important. I was always in a rush, in a hurry to experience life, to experience aspects of life. And I tried, I tested, and I moved on. And that pretty much colored my working life as well. Career, no, many careers all over the map. Had to experience, couldn't wait for things to happen, had to make them happen. I don't know how to put that into words, but I know now that coming into this life, I needed to try it all, just experience everything I could. And knowing that going into the helping service professions is what I was called to. I became a nurse, and I worked for many years as a nurse before moving on to other things. But you know, it wasn't until I was in my 30s or so and not completely blinders on occupied with my hobbies, which were breeding and showing purebred dogs at the time, I started recognizing that I was being poked and prodded a little bit as spirit will, and opening to the learning and following everything that I could read written by Edgar Cayce about past lifetimes took my attention. And I began to spend all my time and money in the Mystic Arts bookstore, learning, and just became a student of everything metaphysical.
Edgar Cayce was a wonderful teacher. He opened eyes to hardcore people that had no awareness of anything beyond this earth. And he was way ahead of his time, Edgar Cayce. He is inspiring.
And I believe he opened the eyes of people in science as well.
Right.
He really did. As I was doing all of this learning and studying reincarnation and studying past life regressions and psychometry and all the things I could find to learn about, I was feeling a draw towards automatic writing. And this is what I do now. Automatic writing, for whatever reason, I wasn't even sure I had a full grasp on what that meant, but I just knew I needed to go there. And again, for your audience and people who feel compelled and called in a certain direction, I really advise follow your heart in this. Go and find out why you're being so pulled towards it.
Carole, can you explain for people who don't know, maybe who've never heard of automatic writing, what that is?
Absolutely, and thank you. And I can start by saying I was completely unsuccessful for a very long time when I tried this. Automatic writing is to receive spirit, energy, knowledge, messages, if you will, and rather than speaking them as trance channels or channelers do, the information flows through me and comes out in writing. So I am with a pen and paper, and the information, the message that I will have asked for probably comes through me without my conscious mind being engaged. I don't hear anything except the odd word as a thought, but I am writing this message as it comes through me. And I am not writing it in my own handwriting. It is coming through in the handwriting of the spirit energy I am channeling.
So you're not controlling the letters, you're not controlling your hand, you just relaxed and let it's
totally relaxed. And my spirit guide that I channel, whose name is Pax, P-A-X, has a very large and flowing and loving energy. And it comes through in this lovely handwriting. And I've been doing this since the mid-1990s. Handwriting has not changed at all. The only time the handwriting will change is if I am working as a medium and a client has asked me to contact someone who's passed over, and we do so, and that spirit energy comes through with the message. It's remarkable. Tiny, tiny, cramped handwriting, because clearly that was probably the first time that spirit has ever been asked to communicate. And because I don't speak the words, it comes through in writing. It's very small handwriting, and
I understand that from the other side, like if especially people who are not like you say, they're not channeling. It's not like an energy like Pax, but just an individual. It can be difficult for them to navigate the energy shift, like, because our energy is pretty low compared to where they're at when they're on the other side. I remember someone telling me about my son. He was trying to, because my son was killed in a car accident, and afterwards had just started my first show podcast, Let's Get Real, Chatting with Catherine. I just started it in January of 2012, and he was killed in March 15th. And I had several guests on my show that were channelers or people who were very spiritual mediums and things like that. And several times they do the show, and at the end of the show, once we were off there or whatever, I had one woman said, like she was going like this with her throat. She said, "Your son has been trying to talk through me for this whole show. He wants to give you a message, but he couldn't because he wasn't used to her. He wasn't used to he was having a hard time knowing how to use the energy from the other side." So it's fascinating.
Yes, it is. And for me, the ability to be a medium and to bring through a spirit is influenced by Pax. because Pax is with me when I'm channeling. And I ask Pax to see if we can contact that particular spirit. That spirit may no longer be available. They may have come back to this earth. They have reincarnated. They may still be healing. Some people want to contact their loved one within a day or two, and that's usually not successful. But it's through Pax that the spirit of someone's loved one is able to enter.
So Pax facilitates
Pax facilitates. Yeah. And you know what you're describing about the difference in our vibratory levels, I think also accounts for this difficulty in the handwriting.
Yes.
We're on just a totally different plane.
Right.
So the automatic writing is it's asking for, being specific about asking for who or what I want to communicate with. In my case, it's always Pax. And protecting myself before I even begin with affirmations and words that ensure that I'm only asking for Pax and receiving the information that will serve the highest and best good of all, only through me. And then remaining open and allowing for the energy to come in. I mentioned earlier how unsuccessful I was initially at trying to do automatic writing, as I called it.
Right.
I hadn't thought through the responsibility, the ramifications of being able to receive spirit communication. What was I going to do with it? What was my purpose? Who was I to think I was going to do this, and why? And for whose benefit? Hadn't given it a thought. It was in my rush to experience all these things. My intention was to learn to do this. And it was years before I was able to grow myself spiritually, specifically to be able to do this.
You have to, because I've had an experience myself with the waiting for spirit, waiting for some, understanding. Did you have to get to where your intention was in alignment, where you were open to it, and you were understanding there was a purpose, you were more in that kind of understanding before it would actually come through? Do you think that's, because I don't?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And I reached that place and I was beginning to make contact. I was able to write and make contact with spirits that were coming through me, all kinds of them. And I had not thought of the proper means of protection at that point. And so I was getting all of these spirits who just wanted anybody to communicate with. And I found myself doing things like, well, he wants me to find his Aunt Martha in Illinois and give her a message. I was so new at this. You and I talked earlier about spirits sometimes tiring of waiting for us to get there. And in one of these evening sessions, sitting at my desk in my home office, writing, suddenly the handwriting changed. The whole energy in the room changed. The energy in my arm changed. It was Pax. And the writing became this large, flowing, beautiful energy on paper. And he introduced himself to me. There was a message. He introduced himself to me, said, the woman who had previously channeled him for many years and written very, very many world-changing books had passed on. And he was there to ask me if I would be willing to become his channel. And
Wow.
The purpose for this would be to because there were things going on in our world that spirit wanted to speak about. Now, this is in the mid-90s. Our agreement would be, if I would agree to be the Pax channel, it would be for the purpose of putting his messages into book form and getting these books out into the world. Secondly, I would not change any of his words. That was our agreement. I said, why me? Why me? He said, and I'll never forget this, because you're new at this, you have no bad habits, and you will change none of my words.
Oh my goodness. This so sorry, this is so much confirmation for me. When I was being asked to write Father Walter Krusky's life story, he was a Roman Catholic priest in Alberta and very well known. Well, he was getting up in his ages, and he had something to say, and he wanted to say it. And when he met me, I was sick. And I was, well, he didn't meet me when I was sick, but I had got sick shortly after that. And he really loved my energy. He loved the way I wrote. And I wasn't a writer at that time, in the sense of I wasn't writing articles or books or anything like that. And he kept said, I'll wait. It has to be you. And I said to him, listen, I don't know why we're writing this book, why you need to tell this story, why I need to be the one to write it. So you until we get that answer, I'm not going to even, entertain this, because I just don't understand. I'm not that person. I don't think you really know, but he wanted an authentic story, his story. He didn't want it sensationalized. He didn't want it edited. He wanted his words. This went on for a little while, and then he phoned me up one day and we were talking. I had been learning about somebody else. I'd been reading somebody else's book, and it was exactly that confirmation, because right after I made that, writing the book, researching the book, the whole thing, everything about it, I wrote it in his words, the whole book, so much so that most people who read it thought he wrote it. And when I finished and sent it to him to proof before he died, he read it and he cried like a baby. And he said to me, my God, it's like I wrote it. I said, I know. And so I was pulling in that energy that was his, the priest's, and channeling it into the book. So it can happen in a kind of a physical, collective, spiritual way, as well as what you're doing. It was really interesting, because it was just like that I had no problem having the money to publish it. That's when I started my publishing company. And I had no intentions of doing any of those things, right?
No,
that's what you're alluding to with what we're talking about. When Spirit's saying move, you're moving. And we did.
We do. And I say we do because we have little choice in the matter, because it's our purpose. I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I'm talking in my 30s and later. Suddenly, I have this awareness. This is my purpose in life. Oh my gosh. And now I see why I had to have all of these life experiences that I was so impatient to have, because it has given me this really width and breadth of life experience, pretty much all positive, by the way. But when Pax first asked this of me, as I say, I was seated in my office. We had this exchange, and I thought, oh my God, because I knew the gravity of this. I knew the huge responsibility. And I leapt up out of my chair because I was going to pace the floor. Oh no, not so much. I had 3 sleeping Irish wolfhounds on the carpet, which took up every square inch of this large room. So I sat back down in my chair and went, oh my gosh. And so I asked for your audience. Here's how it played out. I asked for time. I said, I am aware of the responsibility of this for me, and I need time. May I have time? I think I took a week or 2 to contemplate this. And then I agreed, and we began. And if there's one word that is constant with Pax, it's trust. Trust in yourself. And I had to trust that somehow, some way, and someday I would be able to put his words into book form and get those books out to the world. I had no idea how.
Sorry, you mentioned something about you felt you had no choice, or we don't have a choice, we're being, and I think that's something for the audience and for people think, contemplate this message, right? Because I think it's not about just accepting what's being shared here. Think about it, because it's a free will planet. And if we feel, and a lot of people who are channeling higher spirit or energy like that, or even in your life, you feel compelled to do something, even though it's a free will planet, that does rather suggest that you've already made that choice on the other side before you came here. It suggests that we do have free will. We have this ego that doesn't really understand about spirit's will and spirit's energy and all that kind of thing. So even though when you say, I didn't feel like I had a choice, and I've felt that way many times too, it's like I'm just propelled into doing something, but I do have free will to say no. And I feel that when I say no, spirit will find another way, because spirit knows the ego and the humanness of it, right? There is something about it. It is free will, and you had that, but you made the choice before you came. Like you decided.
Sure.
You must have had a contract, and then having all the life experiences on the planet at this time that give you some confidence and a sense of authority. Because I did similar. I was all over the place, learning different things and very quickly, and then moving on to something else. And I've just come to that awareness that is kind of a pattern, which many of us, discouraged from doing.
Yes.
They always say jack of all trades, master of none, as if that's a bad thing. And it isn't. That's really happening to a lot of people. So if you're doing that, my audience, people watching this, celebrate it and question this further.
Yes. Well, it used to be a bad thing if you didn't work 40 years and get the gold watch at the end of it. I think that during this period of time, when we are strongly called to do something and we're deciding whether we're going to or not, as in my case, for that week or two, I was allowing my higher self, my inner voice, to speak to me and allow me to have the awareness that, yes, I needed to do this. It was definitely for me to do. And I came to that understanding and acceptance within myself. I don't recall that I spoke to anyone else about it because, outside of a small circle of people, everyone else just thinks it's very woo-woo. And I just, as I say, I had my internal communication and my validation that this, in fact, is what I needed to do. And I began. And I wrote and wrote and wrote. And all of this channeling went into file folders in a drawer and didn't see the light of day for quite a long time. And then I started putting it together. And by the way, I still channel a little bit by automatic writing, but I am enabled to channel right directly onto the keyboard. So it makes things go better.
Yeah, I'm that is pretty cool. So the spirits upgraded
Upgraded. I'm accustomed to saying to myself, well, as I've grown in spirituality in my practice, well, I'm not sure if I can do that. And let's just do it. And Pax has always made it available. And yes, we can, of course you can do that, dear, he'll say.
Oh, that's very sweet. But you didn't have any awareness of how in the heck you're going to publish these books or have them out there, because you
No.
have a number of books now that are, and are all of them channeled from by Pax?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and some of them are children's books?
Even the children's books, the two closest to me on the screen, are children's books, and they're wonderful, wonderful channeled stories in which you will find things like shape shifting, and you will find telepathic communication between people and animals. You will find things that are not exactly mainstream. They're absolutely delightful, and these are stories. It's a trilogy, actually, but I've been sidelined doing a current book and haven't got back to the third one. But yes, they are all channeled, and they include the children's books, which really focus on love and understanding between people. There are two books on COVID that I did right at the beginning, talking about where it came from, how it got started, where it's going, and what has to happen for it to be gone. And the third book, the white one, sort of in the middle there, is called Personal Power Will End the Pandemic. And it is something that Pax wanted to share about how we can all make a huge difference in getting rid of this. And then there's the book on called Do Unto Earth, It's Not Too Late, which is a book that began talking about the environment, what we've done to it, what we need to do to repair our damage. And then it went on and got into all kinds of earth mysteries that Pax wanted to share. It's a 450-page book, and he wanted to speak about our ancestry off planet, about extraterrestrials, about ancient mysteries, what really happened to Amelia Earhart, the truth about the Bermuda Triangle Mysteries. All kinds of human curiosities are in there. Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Tell us again the name of the title and where can people get these books?
Do Unto Earth, It's Not Too Late. And I think the best thing is just go to amazon.com.ca and order the books that way. They're readily available, and it's an eye-opener, really. There's so much in the way of topics in that book. But again, it's spirit giving us guidance where we need it, where we ask for it, and lots of times where we don't ask for it. But spirit knows that there's a need.
Yeah. So Pax is a benevolent energy from the higher realms, like beyond the Christ light, or at least the Christ light, that is it's not masculine, feminine. Is it a single entity or is it a collective?
It is indeed a collective, Catherine, and it is my reference that I use the term he. It is not an individual entity. It's a collective consciousness. Absolutely. Okay. He is the divine wisdom source. It's just over all these years, it's become my reference is a he.
I feel that those books are. I feel that I have a list. I'm going to be adding to my book reading list very soon, because it's definitely that really intrigues me, because I know we are changing. We have to change. There's resistance to change, and that's why we're seeing a lot of the turmoil that we're seeing. But there's also a great number of souls, probably the reason we have so many souls on the planet at this time, who we came to raise vibration and to help Mother Earth get into the fifth dimension, which is my understanding she's already there. It's just the collective humanity that is at choice point where some of us don't want to go. That was also something I've understood. Some people do want to continue in the old 3D duality reality. for whatever reason, it's not no judgment in that. It's but there, a lot of us realize the earth can't sustain that kind of thing, so we have to grow up. Basically, it's grow up time. It's the spirits kicking us out of the nest and saying, "Be adults, be responsible." It's not all about you.
Fear of change for many people. Also, not trusting that it is in fact for the best, the way to go. We talk about personal vibration and group vibration and raising it. Pax recently said that functioning in low vibration is a lack of respect. And I've been thinking about that. What does that mean, a lack of respect? Well, I think firstly, it's lack of respect for self, isn't it? If you are a low functioning person, you're not honoring yourself, you're not loving yourself, and you're therefore likely in no position whatsoever to love or honor others. And that extends to our planet, Mother Earth, our environment, everything in the course of a day and
Well,
a
it's
year.
disrespecting the authentic self, like the spirit of is like this is where I think we've been really so indoctrinated. We're not our physical bodies. Like you were talking about past lives where you were an indigenous person. So what's happening, and I say this to people sometimes, when you're thinking about, people always say, let's do better for on the planet, for the grandchildren, for our children. And I say, if you believe in reincarnation and have any concept of it, you're not even doing it for your grandchildren. You're doing it for yourself, because the reality is you're likely coming back, because we do tend to travel with similar families and whatever, but we also will want to try out different bodysuit, different skin color, different culture, different eyes, and we have likely done it many, many times. So when people are really pushing for my people, I'll talk about my people or my roots, and in this life experience, I have strong Irish ancestral roots, which also has indigenous people at that, through that physical human lineage. But spiritually, who knows where I've traveled or who I've traveled with, and that's why it's so silly to think that any bodysuit is superior to another. This would be like saying the Cadillac has more value than the Volkswagen, when in reality they both do the same thing. You just might have a preference for one over the other. Depends on,
yes, exactly,
on what you want to do with it, right? So, it's so interesting that these awarenesses are coming forward so much, and your books sound like they're really insightful and helpful to be able to expand our horizons, which is what this show is all about, expanding our horizons so we can look at each other and look at this planet and our experience on the planet with new eyes. Because well, for one thing, because it's really fun. It's fun to explore, and it's fun to consider, like, oh, we don't have to do the same old things and get the same old results. We can actually take Einstein's advice and change.
We absolutely can. And I think that for a lot of people who read the Pax writings, the joy in that is that he speaks directly to us. It isn't, we're here, spirit is up there, and if you can figure out the message, you'll really benefit from it. No, this is clear, undeniable in the messages. And Pax, spirit in general, I say, Pax has a great sense of humor.
Yeah.
And so it comes through in the writings, in his choice of words. And because I feel his energy in my body as I'm writing, sometimes I just have to kick back and laugh. Sometimes I can feel him wagging his finger at us, just like your grandfather used to do. You shouldn't be doing that. And he'd be wagging his bony finger at us. And he is not afraid to chastise humanity for our shortcomings, and particularly when it comes to the damage we have done and continue to do to our planet. There is no patience in the spirit world for this behavior. And again, here is spirit in the form of Pax talking to us about corporate greed and corruption and government greed and corruption. As long as I've been doing this, I find it amazing that this spirituality, which you think is gentle and far removed from earthly thoughts, is talking about corporate greed. But that is the way in these writings we do of waking us up to, this is where it's originating, people. Wake up and smell the coffee here.
Yeah.
He'll say things like that.
But when you think about it, it's like the pendulum, swings. And I remember in the 60s and read about prior to that, but, that fire and brimstone from the pulpit. And it was very much, about if you don't do this right thing, then you're going to hell. But a lot of the preaching had to do with, focus on the 10 Commandments, focus on things like that. And then, go out and go back to your lives, do this on Sunday, you get that. And then we got this awakening that happened with the harmonic convergence. And you have this onslaught of happy, feel good, love and light, everybody, kind of thing. It's like now we're starting to come back to the understanding the feminine is not just all soft and cushy. The feminine is one strong mother. She wants things going on. She wants to shake it up, and we have to work with both. You can't have anything in creation without masculine and feminine. But it's like we've been taught it's either a hammer or a feather, and it's not. It's these things. It's always about these extremes, and I feel like that's where it's not new, but the ability for us to hear spirit, to understand that it is a strong, powerful energy that we do embody, and it's a matter of tapping into it to stand up and speak up for the earth and speak up for injustice when we see it. But not all of us are called to be warriors, but there are people who are called who, like I read the message Pax sent today, and I thought it was really interesting because Pax is saying there's some people, there's a reason they're not standing up, whatever it might be, fear, but there's other people who have the ability, but they in fact are cowards. And I thought, and that I can see that is where for a lot of people, we're struggling between our ego and our true authentic self.
Yes, we are. And can I share with you, I grew up in that same fire and brimstone church.
Yes. Well, a lot of us did it. It doesn't even seem to matter. Even if you didn't go to church, you knew about it.
Yeah. Didn't believe it then, have trouble with it now. Ability to claim our personal power and use it in the way of the peaceful warrior is what we talk about in a lot of our Pax writings. He will refer to the peaceful warrior. There is no need to be out there bludgeoning people with your message. What is it? Walking the talk and walking the walk and leading by example, living in balance. And we need to live and work trusting ourselves, honoring ourselves and others. And that includes, especially for the women, when you take your power and honor yourself and acknowledge you have the power, then you respect yourself even more, love yourself, and you can move out into the world making a change, making a difference. And I believe that when that happens, we find joy in ourselves, in our lives, and we walk in balance. And we truly make a difference in the world. Fearless, and again, as a peaceful warrior. Everybody has their own way, don't they, or their own strengths. We each have our own strengths. And to tap into those strengths and recognize that however insignificant or off the wall they may seem, they have a place in making the big picture a better one in terms of health and wellness for our world, our humanity, which is definitely in tatters right now. So Pax always wants to confirm with people that whatever your talent and your gift is, honor it, and when you're ready, share it, and know that you can make a difference in the world. And again, it goes back to claiming personal power and belief and trust in ourselves, each of us. You know, you and I didn't start out advocating for ourselves. That came over time. Some people get it earlier in life, some later, doesn't matter. We're all working towards it. And it's truly a gift when that happens, isn't it?
It really is. And I do think that a lot of old souls, like you and I and others, we knew our power when we came in. We just had turned it down or listened to the world. Maybe we were too big for our britches, was a saying that I often heard.
Likewise.
Threatening the old way, the old, in the classroom where you wanted to, for me, I wanted to ask more questions, different questions than what was being allowed. And the old system just didn't support that kind of exploration. It was all about repeating what if I'm the teacher and I don't know it, then it's not so. Or it's not in our textbooks, then we don't talk about it. And I think now we are really stepping more fully into knowing that we had to have those experiences. So it's not finding your spiritual awareness and your power and knowing it is a process. It doesn't just happen overnight. But once you really get it, it can be both liberating and a little bit frightening to hear your own voice in a powerful way. So you do have to navigate that if it's not something you're used to, you have to navigate it. And then when you walk in the world, it's not even just about being fearless, but you're so confident that you have a right to be here. That's the big thing for women. I have a right to be here and take up space and speak my truth. I have that right. You don't have to agree with me, but to say that I don't have a voice, I don't have a right, I don't have power just because I'm wearing a female bodysuit, or any, whatever the bodysuit is, we've allowed ourselves to support that kind of ideology. Women have supported it against other women. Another woman speaks up and stands up, and throughout history, we've had women saying, don't do that because you're, threatening our existence, because we were all painted with the same brush. All women are like that. All women need this, silly stuff, really silly stuff. But
it really is. And it's very, very old thinking. You just reminded me something my father often chastised me about. You're always the leader, he would say. Why are you always leading these girls into trouble? My little girlfriends and I, we would just get up to mischief. And I was usually, I guess, the instigator. He would chastise me for being a leader, never thinking there was a place in the world for that. Leadership is a gift. It's a skill acquired, some of each. But that was not permitted.
No, and I think that, going back a number of years, even when I was a child, for the parents, the fathers, mothers, that saw a young girl, daughter, that knew who she was powerful, was, they immediately took her out of the girl category and called her a tomboy if she
Yes.
was a leader, if she was a stand up, and that was not a role that eventually, I mean, they even have the movie Tammy that was all about that, with Debbie Reynolds back. It was a fun, lighthearted movie, but there was a message there. She was a tomboy, and if she wanted to get into the adult world, she had to get on that pretty dress and become that, what the standard of what a woman is, if she was going to be taken seriously,
Yeah.
rather than. And so it was, I think, for a lot of parents who saw that, they kind of discouraged it because it was scary for them. Who's she going to marry? Because that was often what they were thinking.
I think the question was, who's going to marry her?
Well, that too. I mean, but it was as if marriage was, I mean, that's the only way. How's this child going to get along in the world? It's a girl child if she doesn't get married. How's that going to,
Yeah,
no concept
absolutely.
of that she could be the leader of a, environmentally friendly corporate entity. And, that wasn't even on their radar. So I can see where part of the reason they were discouraging us was out of fear, their fear.
It was their fear because that's not what they knew. It wasn't. They didn't grow up with it. It wasn't in their lives. And you know, I never discussed my gifts, spirituality with my parents because of their quite strict religious beliefs, and I did not want to offend them. So I just kept it to myself. And it wasn't until my mother was, I think, closing in on 100 years old that we had a talk one day where uh, she told me that she was a little bit psychic herself, but she'd never spoken of it. And her mother, I asked about her mother, my maternal grandmother. Well, she said, she just knew things. She just
Exactly.
knew things, which
Exactly.
is exactly my core. I just know things about people and as I view them, for example, but it was not to be admitted or talked about. I mean, are you a gypsy? Are you a witch? What are you, for sure?
Yeah, there were all kinds of labels, especially for women, and yet men use that kind of intuition in business, and nobody thinks anything of it. I had a gut hunch. That's what they call it. I have a gut hunch, to buy those stocks, or gut hunch to start this business, or to talk to that guy, or whatever it might be. So it's just the way we've genderized and made compartmentalized our
Yeah,
attitudes about things. But this has changed now. This is changing, and thank goodness. And the new kids on the block have come in with new energies that they want to help to create a better world. So it bodes us well to pay some attention and give them some guidance, but don't try to put a damper on that enthusiasm and that
no.
spirituality.
Well, I don't think we could. Pax talks quite a bit in the Do Unto Earth book writings about the new children coming into our world to lead us. And he speaks very strongly about that they are off planet in origin,
Mm.
as we are. He talks about our origins being off planet. We were star seeded here. Um, Now we're in trouble. Our planet is in trouble, and we're clearly being aided by children that, I mean, we can look around us any day in the news, for example, and see children that are clearly can't be of this world because they have gifts and talents beyond understanding and leadership and knowledge. And well, I guess we're to look to them to help us rectify what we have done here and change our thinking, change our ways over time, rescue our civilization, really.
And it's interesting because even in the Bible, that's one of the sayings is follow the little children.
Yes,
So it's
yes,
not, I mean, there's parts of our religious teachings that have truth but
yes,
they've been so taken out of context that we, tend to not, we throw out the baby with the bathwater instead of actually examining. These are actually, the Bible has that great value, and it's, you don't have to take it literally, but you can take that wisdom that was shared for those times and consider it, because we're still having a human experience. Things are different, times are different, but some of the things haven't changed.
True. And if we are studying the Bible, it is very worthwhile to do everything we can to study the books of the Bible that have been eliminated through its many translations over the years.
Yeah.
Things like Ezekiel, the stories about Ezekiel coming down in a fiery chariot from up in the skies, and all of that pertains to archaeological findings all around the globe that show the same people, and they all look like spacemen. And the things that the scholars of the time, for their own reasons, didn't want to share and landed on the cutting room floor, not in the Bible books today, because they were far too revealing about otherworldly origins of humanity, perhaps.
Well, and people's own true, authentic power. That like I've often said that, in my opinion, religion was a big part of the political oppression of the planet. It was used. There are no holy wars. War is not holy. It's just war. So don't try to sell me that one. But
no.
there's always a political motive behind any kind of conflict or oppression, or turning some people into the enemy, that whole thing. But anyway, that will probably be for another show, and we maybe get you back and chat some more. I have just loved this conversation so much, Carole, and I really feel like I'm encouraging people to look for Carole Serene's books, and look for, do you have a Facebook group where you share messages?
Yes, it's Carole Serene Borgens, and my website is the same, carolesereneborgens.com.
So, Carole, I wanted to ask you, if people are listening to this and feel called, I know you work with healing sessions and helping people to facilitate their spiritual awakening, what have you. Do you do private sessions? Are you able to do them either virtually or in person?
Yes, and thank you for asking. I have done so for many years, one-on-one, where people come to me for a private reading session with Pax. However, over the last couple of years, I have been blessed with the ability to now do this through Zoom get-togethers, and it works beautifully. To go to my www.carolesereneborgens website and look to the contact page, you can send me a message and we can discuss. I'll get right back to you by email, and we can discuss how and when, and give you all the details about setting up a Zoom meeting and doing a personal session for you.
Oh, I think that would be fantastic, because when you feel called, when you're listening to someone and you feel like, I really feel like I would benefit from that energy. If the energy connects, if it vibrates, that's the person. I never just go randomly looking for someone. It's a connection, and I often feel like it is orchestrated by spirit. Somebody's got something. They can help me to get further along in my enlightenment, my awakening, my healing, whatever it might be. And it's the energy that I pick up on. So thank you for sharing that. And
you're welcome.
It's
very healing. It's very beneficial, because we're able to answer any questions. People are often looking for guidance in family, career, health and wellness, finances, personal growth, discovering their own inner gifts, whatever it may be. All questions welcomed.
And sometimes that will take them to a past life wound that you are able to help them to know about, and sometimes just the awareness of it.
Yes.
Okay, that's terrific. I do want to say it's interesting that as you were explaining this, your the light around you in that, not throughout the rest of the video, but just during this, what you were explaining here, the light was getting brighter. And then I thought, oh, wait a second. And then it got darker, and then it got brighter. So I think maybe you had some energy there. Let us know. This is important, folks. This is it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for noticing that.
Oh,
yes, yeah. Pax is with us.
Very nice. Okay. For people.
Thank
now,
you.
Before we conclude, is there any message that you or Pax wanted to share with us that we haven't covered that you feel is relevant?
Well, I think so. And I think it follows right on what you have just been speaking about, and that is war. And we need to think about how to not do that to each other anymore. And we were speaking about personal vibrations, level of vibrations, how we function in our world, and that the goal would be to raise the vibration around the world collectively of all people. And of course, it begins with each individual person. And this is where I think our peaceful warrior status comes in. We need to share the need for people to function in love. Pax speaks of the word love pretty much like John Lennon did. Mm-hmm. It's all the world needs. What the world needs now is love. And if we loved ourselves and one another, we could not hurt anyone or anything or any portion of this planet we inhabit. We would act so totally differently. And again, that involves finding love within ourselves, trusting ourselves, believing ourselves, raising our own personal vibrations to know that we can love and be loved. It all has to start with each individual.
Yeah. Thank you for that beautiful message. And I agree. I think we're on a very interesting journey. And if we can find the joy and the love and share it and be it, if you don't see it, be it. I love that saying. If you can't see it, you think, oh, there's nothing to be happy about, or there's nothing to be joyful. Create something that is. And we all have that ability.
Be the joy.
Be the joy. Thank you so much, Carole. And I absolutely appreciate your time and for the information from Pax and all of your books and information. And I want to just really honor you for actually saying yes to Spirit so you could bring us these messages.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you to your audience. It's just been a joy to be with you. And yes, Pax and I would love to return anytime. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Okay, so for everyone else, until next time, take care. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for subscribing or following, liking, and sharing the podcast. It helps me grow this channel and hopefully reaches more people with an empowering message. It's always nice to know there is wisdom out there and you can tap into it. Visit the website for more information on how to be a guest, see the guest list and future shows and topics. And while you're there, I invite you to browse my acrylic art pieces on canvas and wood. They make an amazing home decor, high vibe art. And you'll also find the link to my storefront for luxurious women's fashions and home decor, created and designed by me with my art and manufactured in Montreal, Canada by Le Galeriste. And it is really amazing to have found them. They are environmentally conscious. They use a special dye that doesn't fade, and it's humanely manufactured. It is an awesome time to be on the planet and have these choices. So I invite you to explore and see if there is something there for you. Until next time, take care.